Marcus Blackwood's world stopped spinning the moment he saw her across the lobby of Blackwood Industries. 5 years. 5 years since he'd signed those divorce papers with hands that trembled more than he'd ever admit. 5 years since he'd watched Elena walk out of his penthouse with nothing but a single suitcase and eyes red from crying. 5 years since he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. But that wasn't what froze him in place. It was the 6 identical faces surrounding her. 6 pairs of eyes. 6 small hands clutching at her designer coat. 6 voices calling out in perfect harmony. "Mommy! Mommy, look!" His barren ex-wife. The woman 3 doctors had told them could never conceive. The woman he'd divorced because his mother demanded an heir. The woman he'd broken because he'd been too weak to fight for their love. She had children, 6 of them, and they were calling her Mommy. If you're loving this dramatic twist already, hit that subscribe button right now. I'm bringing you incredible stories like this 3 times a week, and we're almost at 10,000 subscribers. Be part of our community and never miss a tale that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Now let's dive into what happened next. Marcus couldn't move. His executive assistant Jessica was talking beside him, something about the quarterly reports, but her voice sounded like she was underwater. Everything sounded underwater except for those 6 voices, crystal clear, cutting through the noise of the bustling corporate lobby like a knife. Elena hadn't seen him yet. She was crouched down, eye level with the children, straightening a little boy's collar, wiping what looked like juice from a little girl's chin, her movements practiced and natural. Maternal. The word hit him like a punch to the gut. She looked maternal. She looked happy. He'd taken that from her once. He'd watched her smile fade over 3 years of failed treatments, seen her hope die a little more with each negative test, each doctor's appointment that ended with her tears soaking into his shirt while he held her and lied that it didn't matter. It had mattered. To his mother, to the board, to the Blackwood legacy that had been drilled into him since birth. But it had never mattered to him. Not really. Not until it was too late. The children were immaculate, dressed in matching outfits, navy blue and white, like they'd stepped out of a luxury catalog. They couldn't have been more than 4 years old. 4 years old. Marcus's mind raced, doing math he didn't want to do. 4 years ago, Elena had been married to him. 4 years ago, she'd been going through her last round of IVF. 4 years ago, the doctors had said impossible. Not difficult, but impossible. So whose children were these? The question burned through his chest like acid. Jessica finally noticed he'd stopped listening. She followed his gaze and he heard her sharp intake of breath. Everyone in the company knew about Elena. His failed marriage was practically legendary in corporate circles. The barren wife he'd divorced to preserve the family line. Except she wasn't barren anymore. Elena stood, and that's when she saw him. The color drained from her face so fast Marcus took an involuntary step forward. Some ancient instinct to catch her kicking in before he remembered he'd lost that right 5 years ago. Their eyes locked across 30 feet of marble floor and a chasm of regrets that felt infinite. She was more beautiful than he remembered. The exhaustion that had clung to her during their marriage was gone, replaced by something that looked like peace. Her hair was longer, falling in soft waves past her shoulders. She wore confidence like armor now. Designer clothes that whispered money, success, independence. She'd moved on. The realization felt like a second divorce. One of the little girls tugged on Elena's hand. "Mommy, who's that man? Why is he staring at us?" Elena's jaw tightened. She bent down again, whispered something to the children, and Marcus watched as 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at him with open curiosity. He felt like a specimen under a microscope, examined and found wanting by 4-year-olds who had no idea who he was. They had Elena's eyes, all 6 of them, that same warm honey brown that had been the first thing he'd noticed about her 7 years ago at a charity gala, when she'd been a rising architect and he'd been a man who thought he could have everything. Elena straightened her shoulders, that gesture he knew so well, the one that meant she was preparing for battle. She took the children's hands, 3 on each side, and began walking toward the elevators, walking toward him. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. What did you say to the woman you'd destroyed? The woman you'd loved more than your own life, but not more than your family's expectations? The woman who apparently had 6 children now, when having one had been medically impossible. She was 10 feet away, 5 feet, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something different from what she used to wear, something that smelled like lavender and new beginnings. "Excuse me," she said, her voice polite and cold as ice in December. "We need to get to the elevator." He was blocking the way. He stepped aside numbly, watching as she herded the children past him like he was a stranger, like he was nobody. And wasn't that exactly what he was to her now? But one of the little boys, the one with a gap-toothed smile, looked up at him with such open fascination that Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. "Hi," the boy said. "Are you a giant? You're really tall." "Ethan," Elena said sharply, "come along. I'm just asking, Mommy. He looks like the giant from our storybook." The elevator dinged open. Elena ushered the children inside, and Marcus watched his second chance at happiness disappear behind closing steel doors. He caught one last glimpse of Elena's face, composed and distant, before the doors shut completely. "Marcus," Jessica said carefully, "are you okay?" No, he wasn't okay. He was the opposite of okay. His ex-wife, his barren ex-wife, had just walked through his building with 6 children. 6 children who called her Mommy. "Find out everything about her," he said, his voice rough. "Everything. Where she's been. What she's doing. Whose children those are." Jessica hesitated. "Marcus, is that really wise? She's moved on. Maybe you should too." He turned to look at his assistant, and whatever she saw in his face made her take a step back. "I'll get you the information," she said quietly. Marcus took the stairs to his office on the 42nd floor, needing the physical exertion to clear his head. It didn't work. By the time he reached his private office, his mind was spinning with questions that had no answers. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a contact he hadn't touched in 5 years. Elena. He'd never deleted her number, had looked at it sometimes late at night when the penthouse felt too empty and the weight of his mistakes felt too heavy. His finger hovered over the call button. Then he put the phone down. What would he even say? His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Blackwood, you have a meeting with the board in 10 minutes. The board, his mother would be there. Catherine Blackwood, the woman who'd orchestrated his divorce with the precision of a military campaign. The woman who'd convinced him that duty to family trumped love, that the Blackwood name, the Blackwood legacy, the Blackwood empire was more important than Elena's tears. He'd believed her. God help him, he'd believed her. Marcus straightened his tie, schooled his features into the mask of control he wore so well, and headed to the boardroom. But his mind wasn't on quarterly earnings or expansion strategies. His mind was on 6 pairs of honey brown eyes and the woman who'd somehow done the impossible. The meeting dragged on for 2 hours. His mother talked about shareholder value. The CFO presented profit margins. The head of acquisitions proposed 3 new deals. Marcus nodded in the right places, signed what needed signing, played the part of the ruthless billionaire CEO who'd sacrificed everything for this empire. But inside, he was a man who'd just seen a ghost with 6 children and a life that didn't include him. When the meeting finally ended, his mother lingered. "Marcus," she said, her voice as sharp as her tailored suit. "You seem distracted. I'm fine. Don't lie to me. I raised you better than that. What's wrong?" He looked at his mother, this woman who'd shaped his entire life, who'd taught him that power mattered more than happiness, that legacy mattered more than love. For the first time in his 35 years, he wondered if she'd been wrong about everything. "I saw Elena today," he said. Catherine's face hardened. "That woman has no business being in this building. She had 6 children with her." His mother blinked, the first sign of genuine surprise he'd seen from her in years. "That's impossible. The doctors said she was completely infertile." Multiple specialists confirmed it. "I know what the doctor said. I was there for every appointment, every test, every devastating conversation. But I saw 6 children today, Mother. 6 identical children calling her Mommy." Catherine's mind was clearly racing, calculating angles and implications the way she always did. "Adopted," she said firmly. "She must have adopted. Perhaps she found a wealthy second husband who could afford such extravagance. 6 children, honestly. How gauche." They had her eyes. His mother waved a dismissive hand. Coincidence. You're seeing what you want to see because you're feeling guilty. Don't. You made the right choice. You needed an heir. She couldn't provide one. The marriage was a failure. The marriage was a failure because I failed her. The words came out harder than he'd intended, sharp enough to make his mother's eyes narrow. Oh, Marcus, don't tell me you're still pining after that girl. It's been 5 years. You've had plenty of opportunities to remarry. That Swiss heiress was quite taken with you. Or the senator's daughter, she would have been a perfect match. I don't want a perfect match. I never did. I wanted Elena. And Elena couldn't give you children. Apparently she could, just not with me. The implication hung in the air between them, ugly and unspoken. His mother's expression turned to ice. If you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, you're being absurd. The woman was devoted to you. Perhaps too devoted. She wouldn't have betrayed you. Then how do you explain 6 children, Mother? 6 children who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. 4 years ago, Elena was still my wife. 4 years ago, she was supposedly infertile. And now she has sextuplets? Catherine stood, smoothing her skirt with hands that shook slightly. I suggest you drop this obsession immediately. Elena is your past. Focus on your future. Focus on this company. Focus on finding a suitable wife who can actually provide the heirs this family needs. What if I already had the suitable wife, and I was too stupid to realize it? His mother's face went hard as granite. If you pursue this, if you drag up the past and cause a scandal, it will reflect poorly on this company, on this family. I won't allow it. With all due respect, Mother, I'm the CEO. I don't need your permission. Catherine walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. You're playing with fire, Marcus. That woman moved on. Let her go. Let yourself move on. And for God's sake, don't embarrass yourself chasing after another man's children. She left and Marcus sank into his chair, exhaustion washing over him. Another man's children. The words echoed in his skull like a death sentence. Was that what they were? Had Elena found someone else? Someone better? Someone who hadn't chosen family duty over love? Someone who'd given her the children she'd always dreamed of? The thought made him want to put his fist through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Found some information about Elena Reyes. Shall I bring it to your office? Yes. Jessica appeared 15 minutes later with a tablet and an expression that said she'd rather be anywhere else. Sir, she started carefully. Are you sure you want to know this? Everything. She handed him the tablet. Elena Reyes, formerly Elena Blackwood. Age 32, currently CEO of Lumina Architecture, a firm she founded 4 years ago. The company has quickly become one of the top boutique architecture firms in the country, specializing in sustainable luxury designs. Her net worth is estimated at $50 million. Marcus felt a surge of pride despite everything. She'd done it. She'd built the career she'd always talked about, the one she'd put on hold during their marriage to focus on fertility treatments and being the perfect Blackwood wife. Go on. She lives in the Ravencrest Tower penthouse. The 6 children are registered as Elena Reyes's biological children. Names are Ethan, Emma, Olivia, Noah, Sophia, and Liam, all born on March 15th, 4 years ago. Biological. The word hit him like a freight train. 4 years ago, March 15th. He did the math. 4 years ago in March, Elena had still been his wife. They'd been separated but not yet divorced. The divorce hadn't been finalized until June of that year, which meant if those children were biologically hers, if she'd been pregnant with them, she would have conceived them in July or August, when they were still married, when they were living together, when she was supposedly infertile. Jessica, he said slowly, is there any record of a father? His assistant shifted uncomfortably. No, sir. The birth certificates list only Elena as the parent. There's no father listed. That's not possible. You can't just leave the father off a birth certificate. Actually, you can. If the father is unknown, or if the mother chooses not to list him, it's not common, but it's legal. Unknown, Marcus repeated. The word tasted bitter. So Elena had either used a sperm donor or she was protecting someone's identity. Either way, she'd chosen not to name the father. Had she done that to protect him? Or to cut him out of her life completely? Is there anything else, he asked? Jessica hesitated. Sir, there's something odd about the children's birth date. What? March 15th was exactly 9 months after you and Elena's last wedding anniversary, the anniversary you spent together at the Maldives resort, trying to reconcile. The tablet fell from Marcus's hands. The Maldives. He remembered that trip with painful clarity, a last-ditch effort to save their marriage. They'd made love that night, desperate and aching, both of them knowing it was probably goodbye but unable to let go. She'd cried afterward, and he'd held her. And they'd talked about everything except the inevitable. 3 weeks later, she'd moved out. 2 months after that, the divorce was final. What if she'd been pregnant then? What if she hadn't known? What if by the time she found out, he'd already married her off to a lifetime of heartbreak? Get me everything else you can find. Medical records, financial records, where she goes, who she sees. I want to know everything about the last 4 years of her life. Marcus, Jessica said softly, I have to ask, what are you going to do with this information? I don't know yet. But those children, Jessica, if there's any chance, any possibility that they're mine, you're going to do a paternity test? He met her eyes. I'm going to find out the truth, whatever that truth is. Over the next 3 days, Marcus became obsessed. He had investigators digging into every corner of Elena's life. He learned that she'd been pregnant during the divorce proceedings but hadn't told anyone. He learned that she'd had a high-risk pregnancy with sextuplets, that she'd been bedridden for months, that she'd almost died during delivery. He learned that she'd done it all alone. No husband, no partner, just Elena and 6 babies against the world. The guilt was suffocating. He learned that her company had exploded in success, that she was sought after by celebrities and tech moguls, that she'd turned down projects worth millions because they didn't align with her environmental values. She'd become everything she was meant to be, without him. He learned that the children attended an exclusive private preschool, that Elena was a devoted mother who never missed a school event, that she'd hired a nanny but insisted on doing bedtime routines herself every single night. And he learned that there was no man in her life, no boyfriend, no mysterious baby daddy who visited on weekends, just Elena and her 6 perfect children. The more he discovered, the more his chest ached with what he'd lost, what he'd thrown away. Elena had been alone and pregnant, facing the most terrifying time of her life, while he'd been signing merger documents and attending board meetings. She'd been rushed to the hospital for an emergency C-section at 29 weeks, her life hanging in the balance, while he'd been dating the Swiss heiress his mother had handpicked. He'd moved on while she'd been fighting for her life and the lives of their children. The thought made him physically ill. On the 4th day, Marcus made a decision. He couldn't live with not knowing anymore. He couldn't live with the possibility that he had 6 children out there who didn't know their father. And most importantly, he couldn't live without trying to fix the greatest mistake of his life. He was standing in the parking garage when Elena arrived to pick up the children from daycare. She emerged from a black SUV, and he stepped out from behind his car before he could talk himself out of it. Elena froze, her hands still on the car door. What are you doing here? We need to talk. She glanced toward the building where her children were, then back at him, her expression wary. I have nothing to say to you. Those children, are they mine? The question hung between them like a live wire. Elena's face went pale, then flushed with anger. You have no right, she started. Are they mine? He repeated, stepping closer. I need to know, Elena. I deserve to know. You deserve. Her voice was shaking now, fury and something else, something that might have been fear. You deserve nothing. You divorced me, Marcus. You signed the papers. You chose your mother and your precious legacy over me. You don't get to show up now and demand answers. I never stopped loving you. The words came out raw, unplanned, and Elena's eyes widened with shock. Then her face hardened. Don't, she said. Don't you dare. You don't get to say that to me. Not after what you did. Elena, please, just tell me. Are those 6 children mine? She stared at him for a long moment, and he saw the war playing out in her eyes. Pain, anger, fear, and something that might have been longing all battled for dominance. Finally, she whispered, yes. The world tilted. Yes, he breathed. Elena, how? The doctors said it was impossible. Turns out the doctors were wrong, or maybe it was a miracle, or maybe God has a cruel sense of humor. I don't know, Marcus. All I know is that 2 weeks after our divorce was finalized, I found out I was pregnant, with 6 babies. 6 babies that the world said I couldn't have. Why didn't you tell me? She laughed, but it was a broken sound that made his heart crack. Tell you? Tell the man who divorced me because I was barren? Tell you that the wife you threw away because she couldn't give you an heir was suddenly pregnant with not 1 but 6 heirs? Why would I do that? Because they're my children. Are they? Elena's eyes flashed with pain and anger. You wanted nothing to do with me, Marcus. You made that abundantly clear. So I made a choice. I chose to raise them alone. I chose to protect them from a father who would resent them, who would see them as a mistake, who would choose his family's approval over their well-being. I would never resent them. Really? Because you resented me for being infertile. You resented me for failing to give you the one thing your mother demanded. Don't pretend this is about love, Marcus. This is about your ego. This is about your legacy. You're wrong. Am I? Then why are you here? Why now? After 5 years? Let me guess. You saw me with the children and suddenly realized what you'd lost. Well, guess what? You don't get to waltz back into our lives now that it's convenient for you. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, frustration and desperation warring inside him. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I destroyed us. But Elena, please, just let me explain. Explain what? That you were too weak to stand up to your mother? That the Blackwood legacy was more important than our marriage? I lived through it, Marcus. I don't need an explanation. I was a coward, he said, the admission ripping from somewhere deep inside. You're right, I was weak. I let my mother manipulate me. I let the board pressure me. I let everyone tell me that you weren't enough, and I believed them. And I have regretted it every single day for 5 years. Regret doesn't fix anything. I know. But maybe time does. Maybe I can prove to you that I've changed, that I'm not the same man who let you walk away. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Do you know what it was like? Finding out I was pregnant when you'd already moved on? Lying in that hospital bed, 29 weeks pregnant with 6 babies that might not survive, completely alone because the man who promised to love me had chosen a corporation over me? Marcus felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back those months of terror. Sorry doesn't give my children back the father they should have had from day one. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that I almost died bringing them into this world, and you were nowhere to be found. If I had known, but you didn't know. And do you know why? Because I was terrified. Terrified that you'd come back out of obligation. Terrified that you'd resent me for trapping you. Terrified that your mother would try to take my babies away from me. So I made the hardest choice of my life. I chose to protect them over having a father. I want to meet them, he said desperately, properly, as their father. No. The word was final. Absolute. Elena turned to walk away, but Marcus grabbed her arm gently. Please, he said. I'm begging you. I know I don't deserve it. I know I don't deserve you or them. But they're my children, Elena. Let me at least try to be their father. She pulled her arm free, tears streaming down her face now. You know what's funny? For 3 years of our marriage, I prayed for this. I prayed for children. I prayed for you to fight for us. I prayed for your mother to accept me. I prayed for a miracle. And you know when that miracle came? After you'd already given up on us. After I'd already lost you. So forgive me if I'm not eager to let you into their lives now. What can I do? Tell me what I can do to make this right. Elena wiped her tears away angrily. You can't make this right, Marcus. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too deep. Some wounds don't heal. I was wrong. I was so wrong. If I could go back, if I could redo everything. But you can't, she interrupted, her voice breaking. That's not how life works. You made your choice. I made mine. And my choice is to protect my children from being hurt the way you hurt me. Our children, he corrected softly. Please, Elena, let them decide. Let them know who I am. Let me prove that I can be the father they deserve. A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. And what happens when they get attached to you and you realize that fatherhood is harder than you thought? What happens when your mother starts pressuring you again? What happens when being a real parent interferes with your precious company? Then I'll choose them. Every single time. I'll choose them over the company, over my mother, over everything, because I've already learned what happens when I don't. I lose everything that matters. Elena looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for the lie. He let her see everything, all the regret, all the pain, all the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd give him one more chance. 1 month, she finally said. You get 1 month to prove yourself, but on my terms. We do this my way, at my pace. If you push, if you demand, if you try to force anything, I'm done. Understood? Understood. And Marcus? Her voice was steel now. If you hurt those children, if you disappoint them the way you disappointed me, I will destroy you. I don't care about your billions or your empire. I will rain down hell on you like you've never imagined. I have resources now. I have lawyers. And I have absolutely nothing to lose. He believed her. Every word. Good, he said. They deserve someone who'll fight for them. Yes, she agreed quietly. They do. The first meeting was awkward. Elena brought the children to a neutral location, a private park she'd rented for the afternoon. Marcus arrived early, his stomach in knots, his hands shaking like they had on his wedding day. When Elena's SUV pulled up, he watched as she helped the 6 children out one by one. They were all dressed in different colors now, and he realized it was probably to tell them apart. Ethan in blue, Emma in pink, Olivia in purple, Noah in green, Sophia in yellow, Liam in orange. They ran toward the playground with the boundless energy of 4-year-olds, and Elena walked over to him. Remember, she said, you're just a friend of Mommy's, nothing more. Not yet. Okay, and if this doesn't work out, if you decide this is too hard or too inconvenient, you walk away now. You don't get to drift in and out of their lives when it suits you. I'm not walking away, Elena. Not this time. She searched his face, looking for the lie, the weakness, the same man who'd let her down before. He hoped she saw something different, something stronger. Finally, she nodded. Let's go. The next 3 hours were both wonderful and torture. The children were brilliant, funny, curious, exhausting. Ethan wanted to know everything about Marcus's car, asking technical questions that seemed advanced for a 4-year-old. Emma showed him her collection of rocks, explaining in detail why each one was special. Olivia insisted he push her on the swings, higher and higher until Elena called out a warning. Noah wanted to play superheroes and assigned Marcus the role of villain so the kids could save the day. Sophia made him a flower crown with dandelions and clover, placing it on his head with such gentle care that his throat closed up. Liam just wanted to sit in his lap and tell him stories that made no sense, but were delivered with such earnest passion that Marcus found himself hanging on every word. Marcus fell in love 6 times in 3 hours. Watching Elena interact with them was even more painful. She was patient when Ethan threw a tantrum about leaving. She was attentive when Emma scraped her knee, producing a bandage from seemingly nowhere. She was nurturing when Liam got scared of a bee, scooping him up and soothing his fears with soft words. She was everything a mother should be, everything his own mother had never been. Everything he'd taken from her by not believing in her, in them, in their love. When it was time to leave, Liam looked up at him with those honey brown eyes so much like Elena's it hurt, and said, "Will you come play with us again?" Marcus looked at Elena. She gave a tiny nod, almost reluctant. "Yes," Marcus said, his throat tight. "If your mommy says it's okay, I'd love to play with you again." The children cheered, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. This was what mattered, not boardrooms or profit margins or family legacies. This, 6 beautiful children who deserved a father who would choose them first, always, no matter what. Over the next month, Marcus saw the children 3 times a week. Park visits where they'd run until they collapsed in giggly heaps. Ice cream outings where he learned that Ethan liked mint chocolate chip. Emma preferred strawberry, Olivia wanted rainbow sherbet, Noah chose cookies and cream, Sophia loved butter pecan, and Liam could never decide, so he got a little of everything. A trip to the aquarium where all 6 kids pressed their faces to the glass, mesmerized by the sharks and rays, and Marcus stood behind them, feeling like he'd found something he didn't know he'd been missing his entire life. Each time he fell deeper. Each time he saw glimpses of himself in them. Ethan's stubbornness when he insisted on solving puzzles alone. Emma's analytical mind that questioned everything. Olivia's natural charm that had other kids following her around the playground. Noah's protective instincts when he defended Sophia from a bully. Sophia's artistic soul that saw beauty in everything. Liam's quiet observation, watching the world with old eyes and a young face. They were his, not just biologically, but in every way that mattered. They had his determination, Elena's kindness, and something uniquely their own that took his breath away. And Elena. God, Elena. Watching her with the children, seeing the life she'd built, the strength she'd found, the empire she'd created while raising 6 kids alone, made him realize what a complete and utter fool he'd been. She was extraordinary. She'd always been extraordinary. He'd just been too blind, too weak, too controlled by others to see it. She was also still guarded around him, polite but distant. She'd answer his questions about the children, but never offered more. She'd smile at his jokes, but it never quite reached her eyes. She was giving him access to the kids, but building walls around her own heart. And he couldn't blame her. He'd destroyed her once. Why would she trust him not to do it again? 3 weeks into their arrangement, Olivia asked the question that changed everything. They were at the zoo, watching elephants, when Olivia tugged on Elena's hand. "Mommy, is Marcus our daddy?" Elena froze. Marcus stopped breathing. The other 5 children turned to stare, suddenly silent in that way kids get when they sense something important is happening. "Why would you ask that, sweetheart?" Elena said carefully, kneeling down. "Because he looks at you the way Prince Charming looks at Cinderella in our storybook. And he looks at us the way daddy lions look at their cubs at the zoo. And Noah said we have the same nose, and Emma said we laugh the same way, and Ethan said Marcus has the same cowlick in his hair that Liam has." Out of the mouths of babes. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. He waited for Elena to deny it, to deflect, to shut down the conversation and protect them from a truth that might hurt. Instead, she took a deep breath and gathered all 6 children close. "Do you remember how I told you that before you were born, Mommy was married to someone else?" The children nodded solemnly. "Well, Marcus was the person Mommy was married to. So yes, technically he is your biological father." "Why doesn't he live with us?" Ethan demanded, ever direct. "Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Elena said, her voice thick with emotion. "And Mommy and Marcus made the mistake of not staying together when we should have." "Are you going to get married again?" Emma asked, her practical mind already solving the problem. Elena looked at Marcus. He looked back. The hope in his eyes must have been painfully obvious because Sophia clapped her hands together and squealed, "Daddy's going to live with us." "Wait," Elena started, but the children were already jumping around, chattering excitedly about having a daddy, about Marcus moving in, about being a real family like their friends at school. Marcus knelt down beside Elena, close enough that their shoulders touched. "If I could," he said softly, just for her ears, "if I could go back and fix everything, I would. But I can't. So instead I'm asking you, here, now, in front of our children, give me another chance. Not because of duty or legacy or what anyone else thinks, but because I love you. I never stopped loving you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it." "Marcus," Elena whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Marry me again. Let me be their father. Let me be your husband. Let me do it right this time. Let me choose you. Choose them. Choose us over everything else. I promise you, Elena, I will never make you second again." Tears streamed down Elena's face. The children had gone quiet, watching their parents with wide, hopeful eyes. "You broke me," Elena said, her voice cracking. You shattered my heart into a million pieces. You made me question everything about myself. You made me feel worthless, I know. And I will spend every day putting it back together if you let me. I will spend the rest of my life showing you that you are worth everything, that you always were. What about your mother? What about the board? What about all the reasons you left me? I don't care. I resigned from the board last week. I promoted Jessica to CEO. I told my mother that if she can't accept you and the children, she's not part of my life. I don't care what anyone thinks anymore, Elena. I care about you. I care about those 6 miracles. That's all that matters. That's all that will ever matter. Elena looked at their children, 6 pairs of eyes watching hopefully, then back at Marcus. If I say yes, she said slowly, if I give you this chance and you hurt us again, there's no coming back. Do you understand? This is it. This is your one shot at being their father, at being my husband. If you mess this up, you lose us forever. I understand. And I promise you, Elena, I will never choose anything over this family again. Not money, not power, not legacy, nothing. You 6 are my legacy now. You're everything that matters. She took a shaky breath, searching his face one more time. Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Again. The children erupted in cheers. Marcus pulled Elena into his arms, burying his face in her hair, feeling whole for the first time in 5 years. She hugged him back, tentatively at first, then tighter, and he felt her tears soaking through his shirt just like they had so many times before. But these were happy tears. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for being strong enough for all of us. Don't make me regret this, she whispered back. I won't, I promise. I will spend every day earning your trust back. The wedding was small, private, nothing like their first one, which had been a spectacle for 500 guests and endless photographers. This time it was just them, the children, and a handful of close friends at Elena's favorite botanical garden. 6 flower girls and ring bearers who took their jobs very seriously. Marcus's mother wasn't invited. The board members weren't invited. It was just about family, real family. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, 6 small voices yelled in unison. If anyone says something mean about our mommy and daddy, we'll fight them. The guests burst into laughter, and even Elena couldn't help but smile through her tears. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," 6 voices yelled, "You, gross!" And everyone laughed again, and Marcus thought his heart might burst from happiness. They moved into a new house together, one Elena had designed herself, big enough for 6 children and 2 parents who were learning how to be a family. Marcus threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he'd once given to business. He learned to braid hair for the girls. He attended every soccer practice for the boys. He read bedtime stories until his voice was hoarse. He changed diapers when the stomach flu went through the house. He held Elena when she cried from exhaustion. He chose them. Every single day he chose them. His mother called it disgraceful. The board called it a waste of his potential. Old business associates called him soft. Marcus called it the best decision he'd ever made. He stepped back from Blackwood Industries completely, becoming a silent investor. He focused on what really mattered. Family dinners where the kids talked over each other. Soccer games where he cheered so loud he lost his voice. School plays where Olivia forgot her lines and improvised. Science fairs where Ethan's volcano actually worked. Art shows where Sophia's paintings made him cry. Music recitals where Emma played piano like an angel. Library story times where Liam asked the librarian a million questions. Park days where Noah organized elaborate games. These became his boardroom, his quarterly reports, his legacy. 1 year later, on a random Tuesday morning, Elena found out she was pregnant again, with twins. Marcus cried when she told him. Happy tears, grateful tears, tears for the miracle of this woman who'd given him everything he'd never deserved. Tears for second chances. Tears for a love that had survived his worst mistakes. "They're ours," Elena said, taking his hand and placing it on her stomach. "Not yours or mine. Ours. Together." "Ours," Marcus repeated, the most beautiful word in any language. As he held his wife and watched their 6 children playing in the backyard, Building an elaborate fort out of cardboard boxes and blankets, Marcus Blackwood finally understood what his mother had never taught him, what the business schools had never mentioned, what all his success had never shown him. Legacy wasn't about bloodlines or company succession or how much money you left behind. Legacy was about love, about showing up, about choosing the people who mattered every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And his legacy? 6 beautiful children who knew their father would never leave. One extraordinary wife who'd given him a second chance he didn't deserve. And soon, 2 more miracles on the way. The billionaire who'd once frozen upon seeing his barren ex-wife with sextuplets. He'd become the man who'd do anything to keep them. The man who'd choose them over everything else. The man who'd learned that real power wasn't in boardrooms or bank accounts. Real power was in the trust of a 4-year-old's hand in yours, in the smile of a woman who'd forgiven the unforgivable, in 6 voices yelling, "Daddy," when you came home, in love that survived even the worst mistakes. And that made all the difference.